It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Game one was a return to some level of normalcy for the Boston Celtics. They had time to prepare. They had some practice time. They didn't have to fly all over the place. They played in front of basically a full house. They were at 75% capacity in Brooklyn. So that's loud enough. That's enough people to make it, feel like a full house. And so I asked Brad Stevens about a little bit of a return to basketball normalcy. I've talked a lot about how practice time and rest and all of that stuff has helped the Celtics get back to at least playing some decent basketball here. They played pretty well for a lot of that game one, and I think they played with a renewed energy. They weren't any sort of lethargic. They certainly made plenty of mistakes, and they had their faults. And I'm not saying that they played particularly great basketball, but better and better energy. And all of those other things kind of factored into that. What I never mentioned until now is how getting back to normal just feels for them. Just getting out into a crowd. And as Brad Stevens said, I think we would all prefer, even on the road, playing in front of 18,000 or 15,000 or whatever it is. And you look at Trae Young in Madison Square Garden the day before, almost full house in Madison Square Garden. Trae Young hits that floater to beat the Knicks and quiet the crowd down. And that's something, that scene was not possible prior to the past couple of weeks. That scene certainly wasn't possible in the bubble. There were no fans to look at. And there's some extra juice to that. The guys obviously love playing off of that stuff. There is nothing like playing in front of a big crowd. Now, I haven't played in front of a crowd of 18,000 people. The most I've ever played out in front of was a few thousand. And even that, when you're in a building, and obviously I played in much, much smaller arenas, but when you're in a building and you've got a bunch of people kind of screaming at you from the other side, that Trae Young moment, shutting up a crowd, is the best. Road silence is almost better than home cheers in a lot of ways, because they're supposed to cheer for you at home. When you shut up the home crowd, that silence is just so beautiful. And that, to me, that getting that silence from like the loud roar down to that silence is awesome. So the Celtics looking up at that crowd in Brooklyn and trying to shut them up after you make a big play and you look into the crowd and you just hear that hush. It's like, that's right. That's right. And that gives you a little boost. Now, obviously, when you're playing at home and the crowd's going nuts, and just like these guys for the Nets, when those guys do something great and the crowd's roaring and you look up and you're, popping your jersey and you're looking into the crowd and you just see all of that, you feel all of that adoration, there's an adrenaline boost off of that. So all of these guys playing to some degree of normalcy helps them. It's wild because when Brad says, and it's not in this quote, but he talks about, he does. He says it right there about the mask. You take the mask off and it's easier to communicate. Was that in that quote? Because he says it afterwards. It's actually easier to communicate with the guys in a packed arena without the mask on than a quiet arena with the mask on. Just that there's something about that feeling of being in that moment that just makes everything better. Even if you have to yell to your guys that, whatever play is coming up next, it's actually still easier to do that for Brad Stevens. I don't think we should discount that. Now, Tristan Thompson called out the Massachusetts governor, and I don't think that he knew that they were getting a full boat of fans on with a game 4. So, or he's lobbying to get more fans in for game 3. That's the big question, I think. Do the Celtics get more fans in for game 3? I look, I'm very cautious about COVID-19. I don't know what the regulations are, but at this point, if you're lifting the restrictions at midnight, I don't know what the difference between 8 p.m. and midnight does for the virus. So if you're going to put people in there a few hours, like if at midnight, if the Bruins, I don't know what their schedule is going to be, but if the Bruins get to have the full capacity that next night, then I don't know why that day before the Celtics can't do it. But that's up to the governor and that's up to the team. And I don't know. Maybe there's a reason. If there's a reason for that, then I'll back down on that. I'm not pushing that hard for it in the first place. But to get a crowd in there, to get these guys feeling like normal, and Brad says it's not like this is, there are millions of people who have gone through exponentially worse. Like, I'm not trying to make this on a human level what they've gone through. But from a basketball level, just from an NBA level, they've gone through a lot. And to finally be able to be like, you know what? This is why I love playing in the NBA, and getting that little extra pep, that all helps. It all helps. So that's part of the reason why these guys are playing better. And hopefully they play well enough to win game 2 and send it back to a game 3 with more than 5,000 people in the stands. Maybe you can get 10,000 people in the stands, or 15. Capacity is 19 and change. We'll see what they do for game 3. And if the Celtics have a chance to play in front of a home crowd and a chance to defend home court,